You should have learned how to do this before, but not to throw shade, but I do think that that stuff is like really funny to me because like we kind of like in this weird middle ground where stuff is still stylized, but it's not. It's still kind of realistic, right? And I think that that's mostly because they can't find people to do stylized work because they don't exist in that industry like that anymore. And it's just because like, oh well, we wanted polish. Yeah, well those guys don't do that. They're out here designing stuff so that it looks good like 15
Yeah,
years later, right?
yeah,
And I feel like those people just don't they're not there, and that's why we keep getting games that don't, they'll look good for at the time, and then like, 5 years later, next game with even more realistic graphics comes in, that game looks like trash, and you're like, it shouldn't be that bad. Oh my, why does
yeah.
her face move like that?
It's the I see it as the artist who can stylize the work, who can actually put some creative effort into creating something that lasts. Kind of gave up on the overlords who just want shit to be realistic, and they say, you know what, I'm gonna go do my own thing now. I'm gonna be part of this like indie project, or I'm gonna create my own product, and they're blowing up there. They're like, yeah, fuck you. Like the industry, like artists like who's the artist that did Horizon Zero Dawn? I forgot her name, but
I
she
I don't know, unfortunately, because
she
there's a
did the
lot of people.
concept art. She originally did the concept art for the main character, and it looks nothing like the
The
style of the
final.
game.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's stylized. Her work looks more stylized in the Disney or Pixar type concept art process. But they hired her for a design process, and um, she's doing her own shit. Like she just did that work, and she's like, I'm gonna do my own thing. If the industry's burning, it has nothing to do with me. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, to me that stuff is like it's always crazy how that stuff happens because you would think that making something that stays is more important than getting something that's more realistic, but then you also have to realize that it's not like the art directors aren't the ones making these decisions necessarily. It's the people who are running the
yep,
show. It's the executives, and they're like, if they don't understand something, it's like that. It's just not gonna
yep.
fly, right? Which is that to me is nuts because it's like you're spending all this money to get something that's supposed to look quote unquote good. Good doesn't necessarily mean realistic because there's a lot of shit that just don't look good in real life, like period, right? But for whatever reason, that seems to be the bar metric. But it's like the easiest thing to like, not to be like, not to shit or talk down on realist painters or anything like that, but that sort of stuff is very easy because all you're doing is just translating from real life. At that point, it's like, why don't you just take a photo? Not to be confused with like super hyper realistic painters who are literally taking stuff from photos and then applying shit like photo telemetry to real life stuff because
Yeah.
that stuff gets crazy. Like, have you ever seen any of those paintings?
Yeah, it's like photorealistic
Yeah, but
with
like
the
they'll instead of like they'll take the pictures, but it's like multiple pictures, but they're actually they'll do some people will do the math to figure out what kind of distortion is going on in the image while they're painting, and that to me is nuts. Yeah, no, you
whoa.
see how you just raised an eyebrow? Yeah, that's what I said. Cause like you look at those paintings and then you can tell that there are different things that are in different focal lengths because they took different pictures and then basically mashed them on top of each other, but painted it in a way where you could tell. So you're
Mm,
sitting there, I mean, essentially you would be looking at a composite of a bunch of different photos, but somebody sat there and painted that. And to me, that's nuts.
yeah.
Like,
You gotta have
so,
the eye for that.
like,
I
you
don't
know
know
what
if
I'm
it's
saying?
planning or an eye. Like what is it? Is it intuition or is it planning?
Like, I feel like it's a little bit of both because you have to be able to think like, okay, well, because like for instance, if you're looking at my webcam right now, it's a fisheye lens, right? But let's say I took the fisheye lens, but then I had my face like actually like in focus or out of focus for that matter, and then on top of that painted all that stuff, right? You have to think about how this stuff is going to look before you like set out to do it. Like sure, you could spend the time to like try and figure all this stuff out, but I feel like these people practically pretty good with cameras because that was probably the way that they were taking reference in the first place, right? So now what they're doing is basically just mishmashing a bunch of stuff together to get to a result that you might not have thought about. And I think that that stuff is really interesting. But you know, not everybody wants to work that way, and not everybody wants to think that way either, because it's also a lot of work. Like,
Right.
because a lot of those paintings, they're not small.
Yeah. Damn. Damn. I gotta keep some of this stuff.
That's somewhat. Look, that's like the like top 1 to 5%, right? The stuff that I'm talking about when they start mixing, matching and shit, and you're like, I wouldn't have thought to do that. But like the majority of like realist portraits and things like that are exactly what you would think they are. Somebody took a picture and then they basically just painted the entire thing, which is still cool. There's no shame in that, but it feels like you gotta, like, if you're gonna paint it, you gotta do a little bit more. Like you just gotta hit it with that spin. You know what I'm saying? To make
Yeah.
it interesting, because otherwise, why are you painting it? Like, you
Yeah.
already took the photo.
Yeah. 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 Why are you replicating? Some people just find value in that. Like, I just want to make this look realistic. You know what's the one? It's not a pet peeve of mine. It's just I hear this a lot when when somebody says, "Oh man, I don't know how to draw, but if you gave me reference, I could make that thing look like it's hella." I hear that shit all the time, and it's not annoying at all. Sorry, if I'm making it sound like it's a bad thing, it's not a bad thing. It's just funny. I'm like, yes, I think anybody who has an image in front of them and they have 100
Infinite
hours,
time, infinite time.
infinite time, they can also replicate it too. Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's like, oh man, I don't know how to draw from my head, but if you give me that photo, right?
Yo, I mean, you know what you should start saying? Yo, I'll hand you a light box and see what you do with it. Cause
Oh,
I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of people who just trace shit like that, it comes out really bad. Like, you gotta know your way around what you're doing in order to make those images look good. Just be like,
yeah, you
yeah,
can't
man,
have
I'll
the same
snap a
line
picture
weight
for you.
everywhere.
I'll snap a picture for you right now. I hand you this light box. Go on ahead, trace that motherfucker.
Bro.
Make it sing to me. They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, the line weight's the same. I mean, like, yeah, there's no energy to it.
yeah, you're like, I thought you could make. I thought you said you could make it realistic, bruh. What had happened? I can't do it. I don't know how you did it, man, but I can't do it.